As I mentioned earlier, you get MaxScript to perform a series of tasks by writing them down in text form. You do this in a special language that is a kind of shorthand English with some algebra mixed in. I'll begin with some simple examples now to show you what it looks like. This creates a sphere of radius 20 with 30 segments. To create a max object, you write the name of the type of object you want, followed by 0 or more creation parameters in the form parameter name, value. You can create pretty much any kind of max object this way, including controllers and materials and modifiers and so on. This is called a constructor, and the object type is called a class. All the classes you can create in MaxScript, like box and bend and checker and so on, are listed in the MaxScript help file. The creation parameters you can specify in the constructor depend on the class of the object and usually correspond to the parameters in the object's command panel rollout. In some cases, such as scene objects, there are additional parameters you can set, like position and name and wire color and so on. Each class has a topic in the help file listing all the parameters you can set. You can write the parameters in any order in the constructor, and they're usually optional. I've mentioned the online help file a couple of times now. Before we proceed, let me take a moment to introduce it. You open it through the main help menu or in the help menu on the MaxScript listener. This opens a standard online help window. I'll navigate to the list of creatable classes I just mentioned. As you can see, they're arranged in categories, like objects and controllers and materials and so on. Here are the geometry object classes, which correspond to the various kinds of geometry you can make through the Create panel. Another way to access help is to press the F1 key when the cursor is inside or next to a word in the listener or script editor window. This opens the help file with the index positioned at the selected word. So here, if I type in cylinder and hit F1, I see all the cylinder properties I can work with in MaxScript. This example moves the sphere we just created 30 units in X and 25 in Y. The move word names the action to perform. This name with the dollar in front is the way you refer to scene objects using their max object name, and tells the move action which object to work on. The amount to move is specified as a 3D offset, called a vector. This is the syntax for a literal 3D coordinate or vector, a comma-separated x, y, and z values inside square brackets. The move action is also called a function in MaxScript, and the whole command is termed a function call. There are literally thousands of functions in MaxScript, many of them corresponding to standard max operations, others to do math, yet others to do file I/O, and lots more, and these are all listed in the help file. Most function calls include a list of things the function needs to do its job. These are called operands or function parameters, or sometimes function arguments, and they are simply written one after the other with spaces separating them. In this case, move takes two parameters, what to move and how far, and they must be given in this order. This line sets the sphere's wireframe color to red. This is called a property assignment, and many objects and values in MaxScript have component properties. For example, a sphere has properties like position and name and radius and so on. A 3D coordinate has x, y, and z components, and a color has R, G, and B components, and so on. In all cases, you get at properties using the so-called dot notation syntax. You supply an object or a value, then follow it with a dot, and then the name of the property. If you leave it at that, MaxScript will dig out the value of the property and give it to you. If you follow it with an equal sign and some new value, MaxScript will set the property to that value. One other thing to note is that MaxScript is always making sure that what you ask it to do makes sense. So, for example, if I were to try something like this, you see that it complains and says that it needs a color and not a number. The copy function here makes a copy clone of the first parameter, so we get a new sphere. In this example, I've also specified the position and name for the new sphere using a similar way of setting parameters and properties as in the sphere constructor. These are parameters to the copy function, just like the $sphere01, and they're called keyword parameters. A function can take 0 or more positional parameters, followed by 0 or more keyword parameters. Any positional parameters are always required and must be given in the specified order. The keyword parameters always follow any positional parameters, and they can be in any order and are usually optional. MaxScript functions often use keyword parameters like this when there are many possible parameters and for which there are reasonable defaults. In the case of copy, for example, since it's effectively a kind of constructor, it can take any of the same keyword parameter settings as the original sphere constructor we used, including things like radius and segs and position and name and so on. In this example, the newly cloned copy is also given a scene object name using the name : keyword parameter. If you worked with this sphere back in Max, you'd see that its name is ball. The name parameter value is given as a literal text string, indicated by the surrounding double quotes. The fact that we needed quoted text here, rather than just the word ball, points up a fundamental concept that I'll introduce quickly now. MaxScript has three different kinds of words: reserved words, names, and quoted words, or more precisely quoted text. There are only 40 or so reserved words in MaxScript, words like if, and, or, for, while, and so on, and they have a fixed meaning all the time, much as in English. All other words not enclosed in double quotes are taken to be names for things, such as classes or objects or functions or other values your script works with. Some of these names are predefined by MaxScript, like the names for all the built-in functions and the constructor classes and so on. You can also define your own names for objects and functions and other values that you create in your script or reference in the scene. When MaxScript encounters such a name in a script, it always expects that it has been associated with some object or value, and uses that object or value, not the name itself. So, if I'd written name : ball in the copy example, MaxScript would look to see what value I'd assigned to the name ball, and since I haven't defined it yet, MaxScript would complain that the ball is undefined, and the example would fail with an error. By surrounding text in double quotes, you tell MaxScript to use the literal word or text as is, and not to interpret the words as names for other objects or values. Okay, back to the examples. This example is another property assignment, in this case assigning a new material to the sphere ball. The property setting syntax is the same as before, using the dot notation to specify the object and property to effect. Again, note that all the properties that an object possesses are listed in the online help. You can see that the value I'm assigning has the same form as the sphere constructor, an object class name followed by some keyword parameter settings. This constructor creates a new standard material using diffuse color blue and 50% opacity. I can also use the properties of other objects as source for an assignment. For example, if there was a material on one object I wanted to assign to another, I could simply say this. When I put all the examples together, we have a sequence of actions written in text form, and this, of course, is called a script. Once you have a script, you can bundle it up and run it all in one go. There are actually many different ways to do this bundling and running. If it's sitting in the listener or a script editor window, you can select it like this, and then hit the Enter key on the number pad. All the actions are run, and you can see that the two spheres have been created. The number pad Enter key is a kind of execute this key in the MaxScript windows. If you're working on a laptop and don't have a number pad, you can use Shift Enter on the main keyboard as an alternative. Another way to bundle a script for running is to drag it onto a Max toolbar. A button is automatically created that will run the script whenever you click it. This is handy if you have a set of actions you perform regularly. You can put them in a button in a toolbar for one-click running. You can edit the icon or text label for the buttons and edit the script in the button by right-clicking on the button. Yet another way to bundle the script is to put it into a text file on disk so it's saved for later use. You create a fresh script by choosing the New Script menu item in the MaxScript menu. This opens a script editor window that lets you type in and edit and save scripts out to a file and so on. Okay, let me copy the script into the editor window and then save it to a disk file. The suffix for MaxScript files is .ms. Once it's in a file on disk, you can run it using the Run Script menu item in the MaxScript menu. I'll choose the script file we just created, and voila, it runs and creates the two spheres. There are several other ways of running script files. You can place a file in the special startup folder in the maxscripts directory, and it'll run automatically when max starts. Or you can have it run automatically whenever you open a particular scene file. There is also a maxscript function for running a script file so that one script can start up another.